Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining today's stream news summary from Moscow program. It's 18th of November now. It's 11 a.m. in the morning, Moscow time, and as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media is focused on, and hopefully you will find news segment interesting, informative, useful, and entertaining. And in that case, please like the video, share with your friends, leave some commentary. This might help to deal with the algorithm, and even better, of course, if you can tip a little bit for further development of this project. Or if you will decide to support my work, you can do it through several means. You can donate through PayPal platform, Boosty platform. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page that I have on Boosty. What else, sir? There is a crypto option, and during the live stream itself, you can use super chat or rant feature on Rumble. I'm streaming on both my channels on YouTube and Rumble, so you can use that super chat feature on Rumble to support my work and also highlight any question or the topic that you want to be discussed after the news segment itself. All help counts, of course, dear friends, and maybe with your assistance at one point I'll be in a position to build a proper studio and come up with a program project, let's say, that will be next level. I have idea, by the way. I did share quite a few times before. You probably are familiar with projects like PBD's projector, also Teampool projector. So I have in mind something similar to build a studio and to be in a position to invite permanent hosts, like 2-3 more people, and time to time to have a guests. So you get the idea, isn't it? But to be there in that position, our community have to go bigger, and income of this project have to be on different level, because this project will cost. You can imagine how costly that project would be. So yes, there is a target that I have in mind, and maybe with your help one day I'll be there. And they're going to be demand on this kind of project, by the way, because after all, everybody's talking about Russia. They don't disconnect. Well, that's unfortunate. Hopefully there are gonna be no more technical issues. So yes, enough for intro. Maybe one day, maybe. All the links, anyways, all the links to support my work are on this within the description box and in the pinned comment. And dear friends, if there is any issues with the sound, please let me know in the chat about it. Hopefully there are gonna be no more technical issues. So yes, let's start the new segment itself now. And first of all, I give you this report from TASS News Agency, which is based on Russian Defense Ministry's latest update, that overnight Russian air defense systems on duty intercepted 31 drones that was launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO. 10 drones were intercepted over the Voronezh, and also 10 drones over the Tambov regions, 3 drones over the Rostov and Yaroslav regions each, 2 over the Smolensk region, 1 over the Bryansk, Kursk, and Oryol regions, the Defense Ministry reported. Although, unfortunately, it seems like a number of drones late last evening and early this morning did manage to bypass air defenses, because we have this report from RIA Novosti based on statements of Denis Pushilin, head of DPR, that unprecedented attack was conducted on the power grid of Donetsk People's Republic. Let me give you details. So 2 thermal power plants in the Donetsk People's Republic were damaged in a Ukrainian airstrike, according to regional government, Denis Pushilin, as a result of unprecedented attack on Republic's power grid. Their Zuyevskaya and Staro-Bezhevskaya thermal power plant were damaged, he wrote on a Telegram. And I saw reports, and RIA Novosti is also highlighting that around 500,000 people in Donetsk and the other cities were left without power. Around 360,000 had their power restored by, relatively shortly after the attack. Yesterday, we are talking about late yesterday. In response to enemy attacks on civilian infrastructure, Russian troops are striking exclusively at the military facilities and Ukrainian military-industrial complex enterprises with precision-guided air, sea, and land-based weapons, as well as drones. The Russian Defense Ministry is also emphasizing. So there was a massive blackout yesterday late evening in the DPR as a result of this NATO attacks on Russia. And it is NATO attacks. We'll understand the regime alone is unable, has no technical means basically to orchestrate long-range strikes. All these strikes are done by NATO, and they have a key regime as their proxy, right? That can take all the blame on itself. So NATO will preserve this plausible deniability. You know, this is a double-edged sword, isn't it? This plausible deniability. And if NATO can do this, Russia can do it too. And time comes when Russia will start using plausible deniability, and for a reason, right? Every reaction, every development, creates a reaction, right? And day comes when Russia will start truly retaliating on NATO, as Russia should, right? They are so freaking lucky, those Western so-called elites, that it's a Putin Russian president and not someone with less patience and lesser willingness to seek de-escalation. If someone like me was there, by the way, well, Western ruling elites will be exterminated by now, I'm just saying, right? TASS news agency is also reporting that Russian armed forces liberated 3 more settlements in zone of special military operation. Russian troops liberated the village of Durechinskaya in the Kharkov region, Platonovka in Donetsk People's Republic, and Gai in Dnipropetrovsk region within the past 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours, let's say this way. Information is confirmed by Defense Ministry. And let me open map for you, dear friends. Hopefully notebook will not crash. And meanwhile, while map is opening, I will check chat to make sure that there is no reports from you about technical issues. So okay, sound is good. And well, let me show you on the map, dear friends, developments on the map. This is area of one Russian breakthrough, Gai settlement. This is Dnipropetrovsk region. This is Platonovka settlement in between Seversk and Liman. Significant progress of the Russian armed forces, of course, and third was in the Kharkov region, isn't it? Third is here, through Durechinskaya settlement. So that's the geography of, what is that, man? It's the first time some advertise pop up from this map. Maybe I have to use some other maps, man. I don't know. Anyways, let's continue with some other news. And TASS news agency is reporting, dear friends, that Ukrainian armed forces have lost almost 1.5 million people since the start of their special military operation. Since the February 24, 2022, Ukrainian armed forces have suffered nearly 1.5 million casualties, killed and wounded, according to TASS news agency's estimates. According to General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, Russian Ukrainian military has lost at losses to the beginning of the 2025 amounted to 1 million, basically. According to information published by the Russian Defense Ministry, Kiev lost over 450,000 people killed and wounded in 2025. So that makes overall number 1.5 million. And I think this estimate, which is based on Russian Defense Ministry's updates, daily updates, are extremely conservative because you remember about a month or two ago, Killnet hacker group hacked into database of general staff of Kiev regime and took information according to which by that moment Kiev regime has already lost 1.5 1.7 million people killed and missing, not killed and wounded but killed and missing. So number of wounded should be at least twice more. And many military experts, including in the West, are saying now that KIAs on part of Kiev regime are well over a million. So this estimate from TASS, although report itself is interesting, but I think this estimate from TASS is definitely very conservative. And this, nevertheless, this information demonstrates scale of this tragedy that is happening in the Russian world, because I remind you, dear friends, that this is a civil war inside the Russian world, right? Unfortunately, Western elites did manage to brainwash significant part of the Russian world in former Soviet Ukraine, and yes, I mean they managed to provoke this civil war in which hundreds of thousands of people, Russian people, are dying, by the way, people of Russian world. And when I say Russian, you know, I mean Russians, members of the Russian world, not necessarily exclusively ethnic Russians only. Russia means Russia has meaning that is much wider than some one ethnicity. Russia and Russian world is home to dozens and dozens and dozens of ethnicities, as you know, right? And all of them are proud Russians, most of them, let's say, right? But when it comes to this Ukraine, unfortunately, quite significant number of people there were brainwashed successfully by the West, and yeah, that's the result. Millions of us being killed. And this is one of the reasons, because it's a civil war, by the way. Basically, Russians are fighting Russians. This is one of the reasons why this conflict is taking so long. I don't think anyone else would be able to withstand this fight this long as Russians did, brainwashed Russians did from Kiev side. Anyways, let's continue. Ex-Ukrainian defense minister Umerov allegedly is refusing to return to Ukraine. A number of sources are reporting now about it. Umerov, according to some reports, by the way, he is collaborating. He's in US now, his family in US, and he is collaborating with the FBI in its investigation of corruption on Kiev-controlled territory. And so even though Zelensky's associates were quick to state that Umerov will go back to Ukraine for 20th of November, probably he will not. But even if he will go back to Ukraine, most likely he already has signed cooperation agreement with the FBI, so he will be protected by FBI, right? And yet again, there are many speculations in media, including alternative media, what should expect after this corruption scandal that is taking place in regards to Zelensky's regime and his inner circle. There are different opinions, but my take, you know, I'll be focused on my personal take. My take is that West is pushing pressure with this corruption scandal West is putting pressure on Zelensky to begin forcefully mobilizing young generation people to somehow deal with the tremendous lack of manpower that Kyiv regime's forces are experiencing now. And if Zelensky agrees, if Zelensky and his inner circle agrees, and in next several weeks, legislation will be adopted to begin forcefully mobilizing teenagers from 18, let's say, and then younger generation up to 25. In that case, for time being, corruption of Zelensky's regime will be forgotten by the Western elites for a little while, not for years, but for a little while. They will forget about corruption there. But if Zelensky will refuse to begin forcefully mobilizing young generation, in that case, West will take him out. And the process will be very rapid. If Zelensky refuses to begin sending messages already right now that he gonna adopt legislation to start mobilizing young and intensify forceful mobilization in general, and if West would not see steps in this direction in next several days, maximum several weeks, they're gonna take out Zelensky. They might force him out. They might allow him to flee for Israel, and they might not even allow him to flee to Israel, right? They might literally kill him and then blame that on Russia. So that's what is happening. It's all about manpower, by the way. West does not care about corruption on Kyiv-controlled territory. They know perfectly well where each penny went, right? People are forgetting that U.S. Finance Ministry, by the way, is like special secret service on its own. And they are tracking practically all transactions in this world. Definitely, they are tracking all the transactions that are related to the Western world. So they know perfectly well about billions and billions and billions that were stolen by Zelensky and his associates. They know perfectly well about tens and hundreds of millions of dollars that went back to the West into pockets of corrupt Western officials. They know everything, right? So it's not going to be any big issue for them to take down, for the West, by the way, to take down Zelensky if he refuses to begin mobilizing young generation on a Kyiv-controlled territory and intensifying this forceful mobilization in general, grabbing literally everybody they can, right, to somehow prolong this proxy war against Russia. And I tell you, dear friends, I have spoke about it quite a few times before in my updates, that Westerners are preparing to get engaged in a war with Russia for 2028, 2029, 2030 would be the target that they have, ideally, right? There is too many indicators of that, and all they want right now, Western elites, is to keep this war going, keep this proxy war going to the point when they will think that they are ready now to directly openly engaged with Russia, and that date is 2029, 2030, right? So therefore, they're gonna push Zelensky or whomever gonna be there to sacrifice more and more people. Absolutely. Let's see what is going to be decision on part of Zelensky. But if he refuses, he's finished literally in a week's time. Zelensky may be ousted even before end of this year, by the way. Let's see. Omerov is cooperating, and more and more information already are coming up as additional pressure on Zelensky and his inner circle. More and more information is coming out about levels of involvement of Zelensky personally and his inner circle in that 100 million scandal related to energy sector of the Kyiv regime, right? And NABU, Western-controlled or US-controlled anti-corruption bureau in Ukraine, already made an announcement that they're gonna go into defense ministry also. So, and defense ministry is like, we are talking about hundreds of billions of dollars, right? So if NABU went into defense ministry, that will be end of Zelensky for sure, because it's just unbelievable volumes of money that was stolen there. It's not going to be millions or hundreds of millions. It's going to be billions, right? And as I said, pressure is increasing on Zelensky to make up his mind as soon as possible and begun basically forceful mobilization. And therefore, we are receiving reports that Alibaba, tapes were released in Kiev with the conversation of these corrupt elements, Mindich and rest. And Mindich is, of course, run for Israel, and he is a wallet of Zelensky. So there were a number of tapes released, and those criminals were talking in code, right? And several times Alibaba was mentioned, such a nickname. And now more information is released about that Alibaba is Zelensky's girlfriend. And this is not a speculation, by the way. Zelensky is a LGBTQ personality, right? As Yermak is, according to many, many reports. And Yermak is kind of Zelensky's girlfriend or something, right? I don't know how LGBTQ people see each other. Right? I'm not freaking psychiatrist or something, but yes, Alibaba is Yermak, head of Zelensky's office, and he was identified as such. And that means that if Zelensky will not agree on forceful mobilization immediately, in days, literally, right, of forceful mobilization of young, then West will take down his girlfriend, Andrei Yermak. So keep in mind that soon Yermak gonna be either arrested or he gonna freaking flee Ukraine. Maybe for Israel also, right? All criminals are fleeing for Israel. Israel is a magnet for all sorts of scum of humanity, right? So this is also something to keep in mind. RT is reporting, meanwhile, that Ukraine needs to purchase 100 French jets. Zelensky is on damage control trip, sort of. He went to Greece yesterday, or day before yesterday, sorry. Yesterday he was in France, and he and Macron signed some paper about intentions that they have, and based on those paper, France is promising Zelensky's regime fighter jets that non-existent, right? And Zelensky is buying these planes with money that he does not have. So freaking circus is going on there, by the way. Freaking circus, right? But yet again, as I said, by the way, globalists have not, and Western elites in general, have not yet made final decision to remove Zelensky. Yes, he will be removed, but they want to use him as much as possible, so that all the blame for everything will go for Zelensky, and his replacement will feel little less under pressure. All the negativity have to be directed towards Zelensky, right? Including forceful mobilization of teenagers, young generation, people from 18 to 25. And so if Zelensky decides that, yes, he is going to begin mobilizing those young people, he might stay in office for another several months, maybe even before end of this year, who knows, right? But eventually he's going to be removed, and reports are that there is active discussion between London and Washington about replacement of Zelensky. London traditionally pushing for Zaluzhny, but Washington is against it. There are more and more reports, including from people that are familiar with developments, that Washington is strongly opposing figures that London is in support of. For example, Washington is against Zaluzhny. Washington is against Budanov. Zaluzhny is, of course, former head of general staff of Kiev regime. Budanov is a current head of main intelligence directorate. Mass murderers, by the way. And there are some other names that have been mentioned, including head of Azov neo-Nazi formations, right, that London is in active support of, and Washington is opposing all of them. Washington wants its own candidate to replace Zelensky, right? So these discussions probably will continue for a time being, but they don't really have much time left, because decision at one point they have to come up with consolidated decision, Washington and London. But meanwhile, this circus is taking place in Europe when Ukraine being promised weapons that are non-existent, and Zelensky's regime is promising to pay for these non-existent weapons with money that they don't have. How insane is that? You cannot make this shit up, man, right? It's just freaking like next level of madness. Anyways, let's continue. NATO is pinpointing Russia's Oreshnik, Burevestnik, and Poseidon weapon systems as their alliance's primary strategic threat, according to Die Welt, Western media outlet, German media outlet, if I remember correctly. The combination of their nuclear warhead types, extreme maneuverability, high mobility, and their devastating long range creates defensive challenges for NATO. And you know what? Why only these three weapon systems being pinpointed? Like, what the hell, man? Is anybody in the West thinks that they are in a position to intercept Russian Kinzhal missiles, really? A hypersonic weapon system? Or do they think they're going to be able to intercept other Russian hypersonic weapon systems? Burevestnik is not even hypersonic. Burevestnik is a global range, right? Weapon system. I mean, that has literally unlimited range. It can fly for months on end, if necessary. And Poseidon is also unlimited range underwater autonomous vehicle. We are more or less familiar with these weapon systems, right? At least we know whatever is known from open sources. But and Oreshnik, yes, Oreshnik is a beast, of course. But there is a Zircon, there is a Oreshnik, there is a Satan II missile, by the way, Sarmat. We call it Sarmat missile, right? Which is also, I mean, very serious stuff, man, right? And NATO is big time mistaken if they think they can even deal with not just new, but relatively old Russian weapon systems, man. What are they gonna do with the warheads from Bulava, for example? Are they in the position to intercept them? No, man, no way, right? What are they gonna do with the Russian Sinova missiles? Nothing. What are they gonna do with the Yars missiles? Nothing. So this once again demonstrates how low intellect these people that are in charge of Western world are. They truly are morons, man. That's all, right? If it comes to it, Russia has plenty of weapon systems that West can do literally nothing to, right? And let's just hope that it will never come to that moment when Russia will have to use these weapons, because that will mean, humanity has finished. Literally, that will mean humanity is finished, because if Russia launching those missiles, that is retaliatory launch, right? At this point, probably we all understand that in no circumstances, it seems to me, Russia will use nukes first, only in response, which is a mistake, in my personal opinion. I think nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons, should be deployed by Russia in the first hours of special military operation. 1 to 3 tactical nukes could be dropped somewhere in uninhabited forestry areas on a Kiev-controlled territory, as a demonstration, as a message for the NATO that to stay away. And this would work. This would work, by the way. I have no doubts that NATO would stay away. They would not risk nuclear war with Russia. But yet again, Russian president has different takes, and he is a president, so therefore it's his decision, not mine, not anyone else's, right? So it is what it is, man. Meanwhile, French President Macron once again stated that France is ready to deploy its troops on the Kiev-controlled territory. Although this time he said that, only after a war will end. Well, after war will end, there will be no Ukraine left on the political map. After war ends, there's going to be no Ukraine on the political map. Russian troops will reach borders of the Western Ukraine and stop only there. When it comes to Western Ukraine, well, Poland, Hungary, and Romania probably will make their claims on those territories. And if France will want to deploy their troops there in Western Ukraine to fight Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists that they are in support of right now and for past decades, okay, good luck fighting those Nazis, by the way, because they're going to have a hard fight there. It's not going to be easy walk for NATO to establish complete control over the Western Ukraine, but rest of the territory of this former Soviet Republic is no-go zone for NATO forever. It's a Russian territory, it's a Russian people, Russian cities, Russian villages, Russian land, and will be Russian forever. As long as humanity exists, that's it, period. There is nothing to talk about, there is no but after that. It is what it is. But as I said, Europeans are doing best they can, globalists are doing best they can to prolong this proxy war until they will think that their armies are well in position to get engaged directly against Russia. And German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius once again mentioned the date for which they think they'll be able to face the Russian militaries openly. So Boris Pistorius stated that Russia could allegedly attack one of the NATO member countries before 2029. 2029, this number is constantly circulating, right? First of all, let's be clear, Russia will not attack NATO member states if not provoked. Already there was a lot of provocations, by the way, a lot of reasons for Russia to retaliate on NATO. A lot of reasons to retaliate against NATO. After all, UK and US targeted Russian nuclear triad. That's supposed to be a red line for everybody, not just for Russia, but for all countries in this world, right? Especially nuclear ones. You cannot target nuclear triads, nuclear forces. It's just too freaking dangerous. But extremely emboldened Western elites authorize their secret services, their militaries to actually orchestrate attack, not just long-range strikes deep into Russian territory that we are witnessing literally every day, every other day, but also they authorized attacks on Russian nuclear triad, and at least for now, Russia did not retaliate. And therefore, if anybody in the West actually believes that Russia will, that did not retaliate until now, will at one day just goes and strikes on some NATO member states for no reason, then I don't know, man. There is Mount Everest that I want to solve for quite a while, right, in Himalayas. And I mean, those people that believe in that kind of nonsense are more than welcome to buy it from me, right? I can sell entire Himalayas, by the way, all the mountains there. So this is all of course, nonsense that Pistorius is talking about, but he's unwillingly, he and many other officials in the West are giving us information that can be seen as an indicator of timing that they think they're going to be ready to escalate with Russia on a level of direct, open, full-scale war. And they are preparing, by the way. They are preparing. I can even give you directions that probably they think they're going to attack Russia. And one of the directions is Finland. One of the directions from where they might attack Russia is Finland. And right now, as we speak, there are yet another NATO exercises that are taking place in Finland, just only some 100 kilometers away from Russian border. It is becoming very regular stuff, these NATO exercises, military exercises in Finland. It's a regular stuff, and clearly one of their directions that NATO is considering for attack on Russia is Finland. It's a Finland, by the way. Probably they think it's a soft spot for Russia, Karelia or Kolsky Peninsula direction. And this is area that we are talking about, by the way. Probably NATO countries think that Russia does not have, because Finland was a neutral state for since the Second World War. Soviet Union did not really build much military infrastructure in this area, and maybe that is the why NATO is considering this part to be softer than other directions to attack Russia. But we are paying attention to these developments. Just like months ago, Deputy Chairman of the Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, was in this area, right? And he made quite a number of statements about activity of NATO, activity of Finland, hostile activities, right? We are ready. We are ready. If they think they're going to attack Russia from Finland and they will achieve any success there, no, they're not going to be successful. We'll be ready for that. Another direction that they think is a vulnerability of Russia is Kaliningrad region, of course, region that is encircled by enemy. Basically, from one side it's Poland, from other side it's Lithuania. But if and when direct war will erupt between United Fascist Europe and Russia, I'm quite sure we will break into we will create a land bridge to Kaliningrad through Lithuanian and Polish territory. We will decimate Lithuania and Poland. We will literally decimate those countries, right, and all the others in NATO, and we will create a land bridge to Kaliningrad. Maybe you are familiar with Suwalki Gap, and this Suwalki Gap not going to be part of Poland in short time. I can tell you that, because this war between Europe and Russia is absolutely inevitable at this point. Absolutely inevitable. They're going to be Europe and Russia. Make no mistake. And we are preparing, and we are ready, and we deal with Europe even without using nuclear. Although I see no reason and therefore I'm absolutely in support of deploying nuclear weapons against our enemies whenever it's necessary, obviously, not randomly, whenever it's necessary, and only against their military targets, military industrial areas, right? I'm not talking about like bombing, taking cities or something, obviously, by the way, just the military facilities, industrial areas, right? Naval bases that needs to be obliterated, if this United Fascist Europe will dare to go on full-scale war with Russia. But anyways, even if Russian President Vladimir Putin decides that, no, we're not going to use nukes, let's deal with them with conventional warfare, we can do it at all. We can deal with fascist Europe with conventional weapons too, by the way, with conventional warfare too. And that's it, really. If US gets engaged against Russia, in that case, it's a nuclear war, full-scale nuclear war, 100%, because numbers, by the way, right? Russia is big, Russia is strong, obviously, very much capable to fight as long as it takes, right, to defeat their enemy. But if US is fighting alongside fascist Europe, in that case, obviously, numbers will be just overwhelming. And in case of US involvement, that war will quickly escalate towards the full-scale nuclear exchange, and that's about it. Everyone gonna die then, right? So yes, I mean, if you are living in Europe, by the way, either evacuate, you either go somewhere else, or do something to deal with to change your freaking elites, because they're gonna bring war to your place, man. No matter where you live, in France, in Poland, in Germany, in UK, no matter in Spain, no matter where you live, if you're not gonna challenge your elites that are pushing for this war literally on daily basis, war will come, man. War will come because your country is gonna attack openly my country, and we will retaliate, and we will retaliate hard, man. It's gonna be devastating, and we don't want this. I mean, we really don't want this, man. You're not gonna find that many people here in Russia that love to go for war against Europe. No, man. All we want is to be left alone by this freaking European elites, but they are refusing to do so. And so, Europeans, please, man, wake up, do something about it. Challenge your freaking crazy governments and force them to act adequately, because we are not enemies. We should not be enemies, right? And your country should not act this hostile against Russia, against us. We have done nothing against you, for God's sake, right? Remember that. And when we do something against you, you will feel it. You're not gonna do some guessings, man. You will freaking feel it straight away. And until you don't feel nothing, that means Russia is not doing nothing against you. So please, Europeans, wake up until it's too freaking late. I mean, that's probably best advice I can ever give, man. To Europeans, really. Seems like my notebook is done, man. Seems like my notebook is Am I back? Sorry, dear friends, for technical issues. I don't even know if I'm online. Can you write in the chat? Oh, Nidish Kumar is commenting that I'm back. So, okay, good. My apologies, dear friends. Unfortunately, with this equipment, sometimes this kind of stuff happens. I can end live stream now and launch another one about 3 p.m. or I can continue. What is your opinion, dear friends? What should I do? Because I don't know when live stream crashed. So keep going. Barner account is commenting. So yes, okay, let's continue then, dear friends. Hopefully sound is okay now and the video is okay. My apologies for yet again technical issues. I need yes. I mean, one day maybe I will have studio and I will have backup monitor there, so I can simultaneously watch live stream also to make sure that everything is working okay. But right now, I mean, it is what it is, man. With this equipment, sometimes this kind of crazy stuff happens. So I don't even know when exactly what I was talking about when live stream crashed. So I don't know from where to continue, but you know what? I was talking about military exercises in Finland, and I will continue from next news that I have there. RT is reporting that EU proposes cut of members' GDPs to finance Ukraine. So EU has reportedly told its members that should the controversial plan to steal Russian assets frozen in Belgium to finance Ukraine prove unworkable, it will seek a cut of each member state's GDPs to put up cash for Kiev. You see, dear friends, I don't know if I was online or not when I was talking about it few minutes ago, but I was mentioning that globalists and Western elites are extremely keen to prolong this proxy war at least to 2029, 2030, right? Because they think for that time they will be ready to confront Russia militarily and openly, right? And to keep this proxy war on, they need not just manpower, and for manpower purposes, they are pressuring right now Zelensky to begin forcefully mobilizing young generation from 18 to 25, and probably they will achieve this goal that they have to deal with this issue of manpower somehow. Simultaneously, they need, of course, to send a lot of weapons to Kiev regime, but money is needed also because Western taxpayers, European taxpayers, US taxpayers, they are paying for salaries, believe it or not. But you guys that are watching me from the Western countries, you are paying for salaries of Zelensky, all the officials in Ukraine, and everybody that is state employee, including militaries. You pay for them, right? You pay pensions for in Ukraine, and you pay even for interests that Kiev is paying to service its loans, right? You pay for everything, literally everything, and therefore they're going to be constant flow of money into Kiev, and we are talking about tens of billions of dollars or tens of billions of euros. On year basis, hundreds of billions actually, right? So that's why Brussels and globalists and European regimes there that they control are these desperate to steal these frozen Russian assets, because they know these frozen Russians will, even if they stole it all all 180 billion euros. It will last maybe for another year, 2 years max, right? And they will need some more money anyways on top of that, because I remind you, they want to prolong this proxy war at least to 2029, 2030, when they think they can get engaged with Russia militarily, openly, right, in an open way. And so, yes, they are considering to steal Russian assets. If they fail, in that case, they will order all the EU member states to come up with their own money, right, to finance this war. According to European Commission, later cited by the outlet Bloomberg, EU nations would need to either catch up, pay 90 billion euros or $100 billion in direct payments to Kiev over 2026-2027, or take on a joint debt to issue a loan if their seizure plan does not work, seizure of Russian frozen assets. Funneling money into Ukraine directly would cost the bloc's member states between 0.16 and 0.27% of their GDPs, their document said. So that's what is going on. That's what is going on. I don't know if people in Europe are paying much attention to these developments, but yes, I mean, they should, because it's their economies, it's their money, right, that was funneled into this proxy war in hundreds of billions, right? Yet again, they are talking about 190 billion euros for 2026, 2027, but this is just a little part of overall spending. Because Kiev regime, if I remember correctly, Kiev regime for very same time frame is demanding 240 billion or something like that, or 260 billion. So that's what is going on. And soon, most likely, all of the EU member states, with exception of maybe Hungary and Slovakia, that said they're not going to pay nothing. All the other EU member states probably will begin allocating at least 0.60%, 16% of their GDP, potentially 0.27% of their GDP to Kiev regime. Insanity, isn't it? And this is happening when all major economies in Europe are in decline and in many cases in recession, right? Without a hope to reverse the track. RT is also reporting that while all this happening, all this hostility against Russia, US is drafting severe sanctions against us, against Russian Federation, and also against Russian trade partners. So US Republicans are drafting legislation to sanction any country that trades with Russia. President Donald Trump has announced, and basically he himself is in support of this. Right? He himself stated that he is supporting this idea to come up with the secondary sanctions against Russian trade partners. Probably these talks are about Lindsey Graham's draft law about imposing 500% tariffs on the countries that are maintaining economical cooperation with the Russian Federation. Although that draft have to be checked and changed significantly, because can you imagine what will happen to Western economies if they will actually sanction China with their 500% tariffs, if they will sanction India with 500% tariffs, if they will sanction Turkey with 500% tariffs, and Hungary, EU and NATO member state, and Slovakia. Even France, by the way, that buys quite a lot of stuff from Russia and other European countries. It's insanity, right? Russia is maintaining economical relationships with their almost entire world. Very few countries from the collective West did actually cut ties with Russia. So they have to make some changes in that draft big time. Otherwise, they might end up sanctioning themselves, because even US to nowadays buys Russian energy sources, enriched uranium, for example, and they cannot do without Russian energy, right? They just cannot. But yes, they are preparing this sanctions package, and probably in next several weeks they will implement it. There's just too much talk about these more sanctions coming against Russia. They are talking about it every day, and eventually they will go ahead and do it. Okay, let's see how successful they're gonna be. I mean, we dealt with some 30,000 sanctions already, and we will deal with another 30,000 sanctions if necessary. Man, it is what it is, right? They're not gonna stop us. They're not gonna break us. They're not gonna break our spirit. Not possible. Not possible. Majority of us, by the way, went through 90s. We went through 90s, by the way, and we survived. So nothing can scare us, man. Literally nothing. And all of us, literally all of us, had the numerous opportunities to die in 90s, by the way. Like, and I'm not exaggerating. 90s were so fucked up, man, that when I was leaving home in the morning, I did not have no guarantees that I would come back at evening, man. I was living in Georgia, 90s, right? And the situation in Georgia was much more difficult than in Russia, but in Russia it was also very chaotic, very, very dangerous, man. And because the Soviet Union just collapsed, and all these new republics were just starting to figure it out, how things work. So it was chaotic, man. I still remember to nowadays, I was crossing the street in Tbilisi, in central Tbilisi, by the way, and someone randomly started freaking shooting AK, literally like 3 meters away from me. And even for me, I grew up there in that environment, right? When this kind of craziness happening. I mean, those all the generations older than me, I was a teenager at that point. All the generations, they burned down Tbilisi, central part of Tbilisi, by the way, right? Building of parliament, there was a civil war going on and stuff. And even though I see weapons and all the freaking craziness, even for me that was little too much, man. Because me and many other people, including people with kids, by the way, were crossing the street to go to other side, and some freaking animal took her AK and start shooting, just randomly for no freaking reason, man. And I still remember that episode, right? Because that's how fucked up situation was. And luckily, none of us died, man. Bullets did not hit none of us there. But how crazy is that? Isn't it? I remember when there was a civil war in Tbilisi, by the way, there was a place not far away from parliament. There was a building of main library of Georgia, and right next to one of the library's buildings there was a bakery. And because I don't know why, but the people were still working in that bakery, man. War was going on literally in like 200 meters away, and they were still going to their job and making bread. They were extremely responsible people, by the way, because they knew people were relying on their bread. Even bread was deficit in 90s. And I figured it out that because it was dangerous, very dangerous to get to that bakery, they always had a bread. So I was going in that bakery to buy bread. And I still remember I was walking towards the bakery, and one person just passed me with an injury in the feet, in civilian dress, by the way, probably was hit by random bullet. And the first time in my life, I start hearing sound of the bullets that are flying next to you, And I realized that I was walking on the streets where bullets were freaking flying, man. Probably someone from other side of the street were shooting someone's that were behind me. I don't know, but I start hearing this freaking sound of bullets. And if you hear sound of bullet, that means those bullets are flying literally maybe meter away from you or even closer, right? So yeah, that's how fucked up 90s were, man. And we survived. right? I went to bakery, I buy bread anyways, right? I was crazy too, I guess, right? All of us. And we survived that. We survived 90s, by the way. And if anybody thinks we're going to be scared by any freaking one in this world, man, they are so mistaken, man. They are so mistaken. One have to know our mentality. One have to know who we are, man, to understand, right? And if that someone understands us, then that someone will know that it's pointless to try to threaten us. It's just freaking pointless. You know, all you will achieve is make us angry. And when we are angry, well, that's dangerous stuff. You know, and therefore we just don't give a fuck, man, what kind of sanctions the US or West gonna come up with. We just don't give a fuck about West in general. Sorry for my French, but that's how it is, man. That's how it is, right? Anyways, let me continue. Let me continue, dear friends. Although first I have to check, am I online? I'm not even sure if I'm online, by the way. I am. So, okay. And next news is about Venezuela. Of course, everybody is expecting now war to erupt in the Caribbean. And head of Venezuela, president of Venezuela, Maduro, once again stated that he is open for negotiations with Washington to avoid hostilities, to avoid absolutely unnecessary casualties. And I believe he is, by the way. I believe Caracas really open for talks with Washington. And I believe earlier reports that some 2 months ago or 3 months ago, Maduro offered Washington sweet deal to enter Venezuela's economy, including energy fields, was true. I think Maduro really wants to avoid war, man. Right? And therefore, yes, he is honest, in my personal opinion. He wants to save himself too, I guess, right? But nevertheless, I think he is genuine while saying that we are open for talks. Let's talk this shit out, right? Let's avoid the war. But unfortunately, US not gonna listen. US is not going to listen. It seems like even though Trump himself stated that he is not ruling out talks with Venezuela, right? US President Donald Trump said that he is open to negotiate with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro to diffuse the tensions and the ongoing scare between their countries. We have quote here. We may be having some discussions with Maduro and, well, see how that turns out, Trump said on Sunday in Florida before boarding a flight to Washington. They would like to talk, he added. So yes, they would like to talk. Caracas wants to talk. Maduro is openly saying in that let's talk. Let's talk. Avoid the confrontation. And even though Trump says he's ready to talk, he's open to talk, he also said that he cannot rule out use of force, right? So all these messages from Washington that they are open for talk is false. Obviously, you cannot trust them. You just cannot trust them. Even if Maduro steps down right now and new elections will take place, I think, candidate of US gonna lose anyways, right? And US will go ahead and fight against Venezuelan people still. So what should Venezuela do now to avoid war? And Washington wants Venezuela to be colony, right? Washington wants 100% control over the Venezuela. They want to enslave Venezuelan people. That's all it is, man. US wants to enslave people of Venezuela. So what those people gonna do now to avoid being enslaved? I mean, you tell me. Will anything help? Even if Maduro goes like flees Venezuela right now, today, and comes to, I don't know, Russia, or maybe he will flee for China or something. You think war will be avoidable? You think appointee of Washington, let's say coup d'etat, they orchestrated coup d'etat or something, and they put her, that bloodthirsty Nobel Peace Prize winner female, in her post of president, in the office of president. You think she will be able, and her regime, to maintain stability in Venezuela? No, man. Venezuela gonna collapse. Venezuela gonna be drawn towards the civil war, because many special forces, many security services, many members of special forces, security services, militaries, they are Bolivarians. They are ideologically on a page that they cannot accept being a slave of US. In principle, they will die, but would not accept this. They would not accept a US slave to be president of Venezuela. They would not take orders from that slave of Washington. So even if Maduro flees now and US puts in position of president that female, I don't even know her name, man. They give her Nobel Peace Prize, isn't it? And she is literally on daily basis calling for war against her own people. How disgraceful is that? But anyways. So US is clearly heading towards the war, man, because there is no good moves on part of Maduro. Even if he flees, Venezuela will be attacked. Only way to maintain any level of stability in Venezuela is to allow Maduro to stay in power, and maybe come up with some transitional period if the issue is in Maduro personally. And he was declared, by the way, designated as a head of drug cartel by Marco Rubio, for example, right? He wrote on his social page that State Department intends to designate Cartel de los Solos as a foreign terrorist organization headed by the illegitimate Nicolas Maduro. Who the hell is Marco Rubio, this whore of neocons, to say who is legitimate and who is not? I mean, what the hell is going on there, really? Right? But they are designating Maduro as a terrorist, as a head of narco trafficking organization, this Cartel de los Solos or whatever, right? So let's say Maduro, they don't want to see Maduro in government. If he goes today, and if Washington will, put in presidential office that woman, that bloodthirsty woman, Nobel Peace Prize winner, you think they're going to be able to control Venezuela? No, man. Venezuela will descend into civil war, because, yet again, Bolivarians are not going to accept no enslavement by US. No way, man. They're going to fight. Correct? And US going to get trapped in that war for potentially decades. Is this what American people voted for? Is this what American people actually want? That their country will be trapped in never-ending war again, this time on their backyard in Venezuela? I don't know, but I don't even see like large-scale protests in US, man. It seems like Americans are just either tired by everything, or just simply no longer care, man. Because where is the demonstrations or anything, that to influence their government, that we don't need no freaking war with Venezuela or something like that. Because US not gonna stop, Washington not gonna stop on Venezuela. They're gonna attack Colombia, they're gonna attack Brazil, they definitely will attack Cuba, by the way. And Cuba gonna be next after Venezuela, maybe even first. Who knows? Those psychos in Washington might actually use their fleet, this military buildup in the Caribbean, to attack Cuba first. I would not be surprised if that happens, right? And meanwhile, while all this stuff is going on, by the way, very same Rubio, this whore of Israel and neocons, this whore of Zionists and the neocons, basically briefed lawmakers in US that there is no legal justification to strike Venezuela. They know they have no legal justification for it, man. They know. But they are going to do it anyways. They are going to do it anyways. And yet again, even if Maduro flees, if his government resigns today, if Maduro flees today, if they're gonna do parliamentary, and if parliament will be dissolved and they're gonna be simultaneous presidential and parliamentary elections and stuff, people that will be supported by US slaves, basically, not gonna be able to win, and they can write any numbers they want. They can write that 99% of Venezuelans supported them, but they would not be able to control the people or control their country because no one would respect them. They would not be able to maintain stability, and Venezuela will descend into a civil war in which US will get trapped for potentially decades. That's how it is, man. And I mean, this is too crazy, man. Trump even said that he might even attack Mexico. Seriously, man. He was asked during his conversation with journalists that is there possibility that U.S. might do some military action in Mexico, because after all, 90+% of all the drugs that Trump talks about and Rubio to justify attacks on Venezuela, 90+% of those drugs are entering U.S. soil through Mexico, because all these major drug trafficking cartels that are allied with CIA are operating in Mexico, right? And Trump said it's okay with him. Attack on Mexico is okay with him. That he is not happy with Mexico. That's the level of psychopaths that are in charge of US. That they are talking about attacking countries left and right like it's nothing, Okay. I don't think US is in a position to defeat anyone really without using nukes. I don't think US Army is a battle capable army, really. But yeah, they can try. They can try. And people all over the Latin America should get ready, man. Should get ready, because it seems like Americans are coming, man, to kill you all. Or to enslave you all. And I think be dead better than be slave. Honestly. Ecuadorians, meanwhile, rejected the US military presence in a national referendum. 60% of Ecuadorians voted against allowing foreign military base, effectively killing President Daniel Noboa's plan to let the US establish naval installation on Baltra Island in the Pacific. Just 10 days ago, Noboa had publicly backed the idea, framing it as part of security cooperation with Washington. Okay, so people have spoken, right? And that's the attitude all over the Latin America, I guess, man. None of them like to be slaves of US, man. None of them. Or vast majority of people in Latin America definitely, I think, don't want to be slaves of US. Understandably so, right? And when it comes to Ecuador, this particular case, well, US puppet regime will, of course, anyways, go ahead and build the base. Most likely, they will do it anyways, right? Because since when US proxies care about public opinion, man? You tell me. Since when Western world in general and their proxies care about public opinion? They never did, you know. And all this talks about democratic West and all that stuff is just a freaking BS, right? Just because they are saying that they are democratic like million times a day does not mean that they are democratic, right? It is what it is. Who can tell that US is a democracy, man? I mean, honestly, come on, man. Who can say seriously that US is democracy? What democracy even means then in that case? Democracy is the rule of people, right? And when last time people were actually ruling US in US, or people's will was prioritized by the political class? When last time this happened? Not in my lifetime, for sure, right? And what about Europe? When last time will of people in UK, let's say, was actually priority for their aristocracy and their political class and so on? Definitely not in my lifetime, correct? And same goes for a continental part of Europe. It's all fiction, man. They are good. Western elites are quite good in coming up with these shows, right? Oh, you have elections, you know, pick this one, pick that one, pick this or that. No matter who gonna you pick, man, they all controlled by same group of influence, right? They're gonna win anyways. You're gonna lose anyways. And you still will say, yeah, that's democracy, man. No, it's not democracy, man. It's you being fooled and fooled. That's what it is, man. It's not a freaking democracy, correct? Probably we are much more democratic, although we don't have no fixation on democracy, man. Fuck it. We don't play no these freaking games, man. There are certain instances when people are wrong, when majority is just wrong because majority don't have enough information. And I don't want majority in that particular case or majority's opinion to prevail, because that will harm everybody, right? So therefore, I might be more in support of freaking, monarchy, actual monarchy, man, right? At least those monarchs gonna know, I'm here to stay forever, and let's do whatever we can, right? At least this is honest, more honest. I'm not against monarchy, no against if Russian Empire will be reestablished, right? Let the emperor there, at least that emperor not gonna have no fear that, what, I know this policy is good, but if I do this, well, people might didn't like. No, man, he's an emperor. He don't give a fuck. He will do whatever is good for country, right? Even if sometimes people don't understand it, but they will understand in 10 years time, right? 15 years time. So, so I don't give a fuck about this nonsensical democracy. What democracy, man? What democracy? But still, we are probably more democratic than Western countries, because at least I know that vast majority of people actually support Russian president, man. I know this because I talk to people, and vast majority of everybody that I know here voted for him. So, I mean, it is what it is, right? And voted for his policies. While in US, people voted for America first, and they get what? Israel first, globalism first, this first and that, but not America first. So which country is more democratic now? You tell me. At least we are voting for what we get, man, right? And there are no these nonsensical gameplays. In the West, it's all freaking show, all freaking fake stuff, man. Everything is fake. Entire freaking West is a fake, man. When people gonna wake up and realize that everything is fake there, right? Anyways, Trump makes another U-turn on Epstein files. Now he's recommending Epstein files to be released. What a freak, man. US President Donald Trump has called on Republicans in the House of Representatives to vote in favor of releasing all remaining unredacted files related to the related to those that pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, Trump's friend. He has accused the Democrats of weaponizing selected documents against him. Epstein was, you know the story, right? Now he is recommending Republicans to vote for release of files, maybe to release some files and some files to be hidden. And nowadays, by the way, you know the rumors, isn't it? Rumors are that if documents are released, Trump may be indicted, is a correct word. He might be charged, not necessarily in a pedophilia, but although could be case too. Trump is clearly mentally ill element, clearly, as many others in the US political class. But what is also topic, at least of topic of discussion and all sorts of memes nowadays on internet is that Trump might be a LGBTQ personality. And there might be some videos or photos or some texts confirming Trump doing some crazy stuff with some other males, right? Maybe he loves to suck too much or something. I don't know what the hell is wrong with this mentally ill creature. I'm not a psychiatrist, but he's a LGBTQ person, seems like. And because he's acting in this weird way to like demonstrate how tough he is and stuff, maybe he is trying to like overcompensate for his mental illness that he loves actually, fuck it, man. It's тошнотворное говно, блядь. There are certain topics that mechanically you might throw, man. It's disgusting. It's freaking disgusting, right? Trump is disgusting. Western elites are disgusting, mentally ill, freaking criminals, man. All of them, right? So he is now calling for a release of Epstein files. Why those files were not released from the beginning? Why? I don't know, but they are disgusting anyways, all of them, right? All of them are freaking disgusting creatures. So maybe they will release files and people will find out that, yes, Trump is a freaking gay and loves to, be treated as a woman or something. Хрень знает, блин. Больные ублюдки. That's all it is, man. RT, meanwhile, is reporting that almost half of Japanese back military intervention for Taiwan, according to polls. So nearly half of Japan's population would support military invasion in support of Taiwan should their island relations with Beijing descend into a conflict, Kyodo News poll suggests. Japanese Prime Minister Senae Takaichi, new one, first woman prime minister there, told the parliament on Friday that any attempt by Beijing to use force to fully reunify with the self-governing island could constitute a survival-threatening situation under Tokyo's security legislation and potentially trigger military response. Her remarks have signaled a shift from previous administrations, which generally avoided making affirmative statements on the issue. The outlet said in their article on Sunday that according to its phone poll, which involved more than 1,000 respondents, total of 48.8% of public were in favor of Japan exercising its right to self-defense in the event of fighting in the Taiwan Strait. What freaking self-defense? Are you crazies, man? All of you in Japan? What the fuck is wrong with you? All this 48.8%. You're gonna declare war on China because of Taiwan, and you're gonna speculate that it's a self-defense? You sickening idiots. Even more of those survived 60.4%, urged Tokyo to increase its military spending in order to strengthen its defense capabilities. So, okay, by the way, these US slaves that Japanese are, and they are US slaves, by the way, let's make no mistake, right? Even if they don't even understand that, but yeah, they all are freaking slaves. So these US slaves want to be reminded where their place is, right? Because it seems like they forgot. It seems like they forgot all the crimes that their grandfathers committed just a little while ago, all over the global south, right? While killing tens of millions of people, Chinese people and others, right? Those people have to be reminded. Japanese have to be reminded why everybody hates them in the region. And everybody actually hates Japanese. I mean, this is factual, by the way. Ask whoever you want from the region, they hate Japanese. Because people do not forget the pain that Japanese bring to those people. And Japanese during the Second World War, by the way, were doing more horrific crimes, committing more horrific crimes, believe it or not, than Germans. So Japanese levels of Japanese crimes are just, you cannot even imagine. Nazi Germany was evil, right? They were committing absolutely evil stuff, and Japanese were even worse. So you cannot even imagine levels of horrors that they bring to their people in a region. And descendants of those criminals, grandkids of those criminals that committed all those crimes, want to, become military power and want to get engaged militarily again with the region. Well, this is not gonna end well, man. This is not gonna end well. And just a few days ago, Chinese Defense Ministry responded. Chinese Defense Ministry responded on statements of Prime Minister of Japan, and Beijing was very clear. If anything happens, Japan gonna be crushed. And Japan will be crushed, by the way. There can be no doubts about it. If anything happens, if Japan will one way or another will get engaged in a war, either against China or Russia or North Korea or any other country in the region, by the way, Japan gonna be obliterated, literally. Just saying, man. This slave nation have to be put in its place, right? And it is a slave nation. No apologies from me, by the way. I'm disrespectful towards Japanese because they are freaking slaves. I don't have respect for slaves, man. That's it. Kill yourself, motherfuckers. Kill yourself. But don't be slave or fight for freedom. You don't do nothing, right? You are okay being slave. So you get no respect. Consumers feel a pinch, allegedly, at their pumps as Russia drives oil refining boom. Russia oil sanctions resulted in fuel prices hikes of the US consumers, according to Bloomberg. Ukraine's relentless attacks on Russian energy objects, imminent US sanctions on Lukoil and Rosneft create pressure on the costs at the pump. This Western media outlet is reporting, Bloomberg, and I'm not really sure if this is true. Did gas prices rise in US? I don't know. I mean, this might be false, man. We cannot trust no Western media outlet, right? So therefore, Bloomberg is reporting that US and Western actions basically against Russia already, latest actions, for example. Latest sanctions are already increasing prices in US. Maybe true, maybe not. I don't know. I'm just sharing with you what Bloomberg is reporting. Members of our community from US maybe can share opinion if prices are going up there. RT is also reporting that Euroclear, Belgium financial institution that holds frozen Russian assets or investments, could sue European Union to oppose seizure of Russian assets, according to CEO of the company. So Belgium clearinghouse Euroclear could sue the EU if the bloc tries to confiscate the Russian sovereign funds are held there. CEO Valerie Urban told Le Monde in an interview published on Saturday. And by the way, Euroclear holds about 180 billion euros of Russian investments, right? From most of which is central banks assets, although they are private investments too, including investments from the people that are not even sanctioned, right? Just ordinary people about it. So let's see, man. Let's see what Euroclear gonna do. But globalists are desperate to steal these frozen Russian assets, and they will most likely persuade. They will force to submission Belgium government to steal these assets, and the Euroclear gonna do nothing. They might sue EU, but it will not stop globalists to steal Russian assets. Vzglyad newspaper is also reporting that, well, as I said, the amount of frozen Russian assets have been released. Frozen Russian assets in Belgium depository, Euroclear, which holds 193 billion euros, out of which 180 billion belongs to Russian central bank. So it's 193 billion euros total in Euroclear. 180 billion is of Russian central bank. And why central bank invested in Europe, man? Why we investing in the West, man? It was so clear. Russian president, by the way, decade ago, was warning businesses, warning everybody, including government, that West will one day go ahead and start confiscating Russian assets. Or West will go ahead, Western elites will go ahead and do some crazy stuff with Russian assets, and we might lose these investments. Russian president, decade ago, by the way, it's on tape, right, was warning about it. And they didn't listen, man. What the hell? And in the West, they love to talk about dictatorship here in Russia, isn't it? Russia is dictatorship. Nothing is done without Putin. Putin decides everything. I mean, really? Russian president decade ago was warning these idiots not to invest in the West because they will steal it. I'm interpreting now in way I understand Putin's statement. He was issuing the warning, clear freaking warning. And Russian oligarchs, even Russian state institutions, I mean, central bank is not even state institution. It's called the Bank of Russia. It's an independent institution, actually, isn't it? These central banks, it's a different beast, man, right? All sorts of conspiracy theories in this world about central banks and how they're being created, isn't it? But nevertheless, central banks should serve Russia, isn't it? And they should keep in mind what Russian leadership thinks. And they ignore it. Everyone ignored. Oligarchs and the rest. This warning from the Putin. And they should not, because Putin was correct, man. And they're going to lose now all these investments. They already did. Correct? And how we are dictatorship, man, you tell me. You know how many times Putin is forced to repeat his own orders? You'll be surprised if you actually pay close attention. Every now and then, Russian president is angry because his orders, when he issues decree, this has to be done, right? And when year passes, 2 years freaking passes, and stuff is not done yet, right? And quite often, he is directly addressing those freaking bureaucrats to answer what the hell is going on, why this project or that project has not been worked properly, right? If he was dictator, as West wants to paint him, you know what, you think this would happen? No, man. Because when dictator says, do it, you do it, or you die. That's it, man. There is no discussions there. But here in Russia, unfortunately, Russian president is too soft, man. He's just too soft. He issues decree, let's do it, and there sometimes year or two passes, and the topic pops up, right? And the Russian president is kind of confused. What the hell, man? You know, I said let's do this like 2 years ago, man. And he is a human being, right? He cannot, even though he's tremendously informed, and on his press conferences you can clearly see it, right? He is in business, man. He actually follows the stuff. He is tremendously well informed, but you cannot follow everything all the time because it's just humanly not possible. That's why you have staff, right? And there are many instances when he is kind of confused. What the hell, man? I ordered this shit to be done like 2 years ago, and there are still problems there. What the hell? And nothing is happening with those people that failed to do something. Nothing is happening with them, man. You think they've been sent to taiga to warm up the air there to the end of their lives? No, man. They continue to stay on their positions, usually, right? And if case is just too appalling, yeah, they might get fired straight away or next day, right? But, you know, they still here, they are still not warming up the air in taiga, which is unfortunate, man. I think very many Russian bureaucrats deserve to be sent in taiga. Current and former bureaucrats deserve to be sent in taiga, бессрочную командировку, as we say it, right? To warm up the air, you know, to help a little bit this global warming. But yeah, Putin is just too soft, man, right? And he actually believes he believes in democracy more than I do, for example. I don't believe democracy is a thing, man. He probably believes. I don't know. Yet again, I think democracy is a shame, man. Absolutely. There is no people's rule, man, or something like that. It's freaking nonsense. And that's why I think it's better to have a emperor or whatever, you know, constitutional monarchy or empire, right? And, you know, there is this particular family that is in charge, right? And let them be focused on the country, on the people, without being worried that in 5 years they might gonna get replaced. In 10 years they're gonna get replaced. No, man, you have all the time you need to work on all the projects that you think is good for the people, man. Fuck democracy, because it's a shame, man. There is no democracy in this world, man. These clans are ruling anyways. So why should lie to ourselves, man? Why we have to lie to ourselves? Ria Novosti is reporting, take a look at the US. I mean, if anybody says US is democracy, man, I don't know. I don't know what to say, man. Yet again, I would love to sell entire Himalayas to those, you know. Russia's external debt relative to GDP has fallen to 14% of the GDP, which is great news. Actually. So Russia's external debt as a per percentage of a GDP fell to 14% in the third quarter of this year, a lower figure only seen once before in modern history, according to Ria Novosti's calculations based on data from the central bank and Rosstat. The indicator decreased by 0.7 percentage point over the quarter. The debt to the economy ratio has only been lower once before in the fourth quarter of 2024, when it reached a historic low of 13.3%. So we only have debt, by the way, 14% of our GDP. So we are in a more or less good position, isn't it? Of course, it would be better if you have no debt whatsoever. But I mean, 14% is manageable, clearly, right? Most of Western countries have 100+% debt to their GDP, 100% plus. including US. Including US, and they're going to go bankrupt, by the way. It's only a matter of time when they will go bankrupt. US alone, every freaking year, spends $1 trillion+ to service their debt. Just to service their debt, by the way, they are allocating $1 trillion+. And this number is increasing year after year after year after year. At some point, US is going to go bankrupt because they would not be able to service this debt, right? They are just borrowing too freaking much, and they are spending deficit. US deficit is at $2 trillion, believe it or not. For next year, I believe deficit in the budget will be $2 trillion. Is not that crazy? And you think how they're going to finance those programs for that $2 trillion? They're going to borrow, man. They're going to borrow, right? So if US debt is 38 trillion right now, towards the end of 2026, that number probably will be 40 trillion. 29.5, 40 trillion. So at some point, US just would not be able to borrow no more, right? And to service this debt, and they're gonna go bankrupt, man. And that will finish US economy. That might finish US itself too. Meanwhile, interesting news from TASS that South Korean LG registered 6 trademarks here in Russia. Okay, it's daily reports. This kind of stuff is being reported daily. I'm sharing this news just not because LG company is anything extraordinary, no. Just to share with you information that every freaking day, every other freaking day, media is reporting that this company and that company are registering trademarks right here in Russia. They love to come back to Russian market, right? And we're waiting for a green light to come back here. And I hope most of them would not be allowed. We don't freaking need LG, man. I mean, why we need LG? Can you tell me? I mean, why we need LG? Why we need any South Korean company whatsoever here in Russia, man? Or any American company or any European company? Do we really need them? No, we don't, right? We can produce everything we want, everything we need. Maybe we have to invest a little more in some cases, but if we don't have it now, then, well, China has, right? And China is our strategical partner. At least China is not freaking hostile, right? As these other countries are from collective West. So only Western companies or only companies from the Western world should be allowed back to Russian market is ones that never actually left. Ones that are either registered their alternative brands, new brands or something. They find the ways to stay on Russian markets. There is hundreds of them, right? Even thousands of them, actually. And those companies more than welcome because they never portray their consumers, right? But others, fuck them all, man. Never ever allow them back, man, because they didn't deserve to be on Russian market, period. Also, Chinese Prime Minister arrived here in Russia yesterday, by the way, to participate in a Shanghai Cooperation meeting of governments, prime ministers, basically, heads of governments of this organization. Very, very little coverage of this event, unfortunately, is happening. I don't know why. Even Russian media did not really pay much attention to it. Even Russian media, man, Russian press, at least, right? I don't watch freaking TV, man. So therefore, maybe they said something about it. I don't know. But I do monitor Russian press, right? And even they did not pay much attention to this event, which is crazy. And I'm quite sure very few, if any, Western media outlets pay any attention. But yes, there is a Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit that is taking place here in Moscow, by the way. Heads of governments of Shanghai Cooperation Organization are having meeting, exchange of opinions. Most likely, certain agreements will be reached. Conference or meeting summit has started yesterday on 17th of November and will end today, 18th of November. And among many delegations, among dozens of delegations, of course, the Chinese delegation is here too, led by Chinese Prime Minister Li Qing, who arrived here on Monday for 24th meeting of the Council of the Heads of Government of Member States of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That's official report on Chinese government website, by the way. I know this conference was taking place. You might not believe this, man. I searched for reports about it to find Russian article in Russian media. I wasn't able to find anything, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna share then this report from Chinese government website. In that case, so that's how little attention was given to this event. I have no freaking idea why, man. It's a Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Big deal, man. As it is a big deal, BRICS, maybe not as big as BRICS, but still, it's a big deal, man. And before I end this live stream, by the way, let me give you this report that Russia's Su-57 fighter jet was showcased in the Middle East first time. So Russia's latest fifth-generation multi-role fighter, fifth-gen fighter jet, Su-57, is making its Middle Eastern debut at the Dubai Air Show 2025, having previously been showcased in China and India. The sleek and advanced aircraft is now capturing attention in the Middle East. And yes, this is the best-looking fighter jet ever, by the way, produced by humanity. Of course, we can argue about this, but this is best, in my personal opinion, best-looking fighter jet ever. And yes, already there was some demonstration flights there in air show in Dubai, and people were impressed. I have seen some short videos, by the way. It is impressive piece of art, obviously, this Su-57. And well, this report from TASS may not be 100% correct, because this is not really premiere of Su-57 in a bigger Middle East, let's say. In bigger Middle East, maybe it is a premiere for Arabian Peninsula. But when it comes to bigger Middle East, from Morocco to, I don't know, man, Iran, then Su-57s were already there and already serving in Air Force of one of the countries. Yes, this is breaking news, by the way. I can say that Su-57 has gone for export. United Aircraft Corporation of Russia has delivered their first two fifth-generation Su-57 fighters to a foreign customer. This was stated by their CEO of United Aircraft Corporation, Vadim Badecha. Our foreign customer, our foreign partner, has already received their first two aircraft. They have begun combat duty and are demonstrating their best qualities. Our customer is satisfied, he said. And of course, officially, this information has not been yet released. But my prediction is that country that received Russian Su-57s, that purchased and received first batch of Russian Su-57s, is Algeria. I may be wrong on that, I don't know, but I think a country that operates now with the export variant of Russian Su-57 is Algeria. I guess soon we will find, and Algeria, of course, part of a bigger Middle East, obviously, North Africa, right? So that's my guess. I think this is good guess, but soon we will find out. Soon we will find out. There was all sorts of speculations on the internet, not just about Algeria being interested in Su-57, but also Egypt, some other countries. So I think it's nevertheless, I think it's Algeria. So I will end there this news segment, by the way, on this great news, I will say, for Russian aerospace industry that Russian fifth-gen fighter jet has been exported successfully, right? And what else, by the way? There was no, let me check Rumble, dear friends, if there was any super chat. There was super chat, by the way, right now. So let me make screenshot of a super chat from Scooby, dear friends, on Rumble. And while I'm online, dear friends, if you want to support my work, if you want to send any question, by the way, or if you want to talk about any topic, really, send it through either super chat on Rumble, it's called Rant there, or you can send it through other support platforms, right? And I will react on it, of course. Let me now highlight this super chat from Scooby. So thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chat and $5 donation on Rumble. A comment from Scooby is, if you are able to print $11 and you own 1 million $11 in debt, will you go bankrupt? USA is like this. I understand what you are saying, Scooby. Yes, but more dollars you print, less value it has, right? And dollar is losing big time in its value. You could buy, I mean, for $100, as an example, like 30 years ago, I'm quite sure 30 years ago, for $100, you could buy much more stuff in US than you can do it now. Maybe 50 times, maybe twice more, maybe 50% more. That's one point, right? So more dollars being printed, there is a less and less goods that can support this dollar, right? To maintain any value. That's one point. Secondly, as value of dollar decreases, of course, there will be less and less appetite to give any credit, any loan to US, right? To invest in treasury papers, for example, because in order to keep borrowing, treasury, of course, have to increase interest rate, right? Treasury have to offer higher and higher number, and that's why Trump had issues with treasury, isn't it? Seems like he is ignoring the fact that in order to keep interest from outside investors, let's say, you have to constantly increase interest for them. Otherwise, why would they invest, by the way, right? Especially when it's a long-term investment. They need, these foreign investors need to make sure that inflation will not eat their profits, right? Or even savings. So that's another thing. Also, by the way, due to crazy policies of the Western elites, especially last decade also, process of de-dollarization not just begun but accelerated tremendously. And right now, Russia trades 95+% of everything, all Russian trade, by the way, on 95% plus is done with done in national currencies. And Russian trade, generally speaking, is 500 billion plus, right? Just with China, our trade is 300 billion. So overall Russian volume of trade year-on-year basis is 500 billion plus. So you see, dollar lost at least from this 500 billion. Probably dollar was taking some 70% before sanctions on Russia, right? So US dollar lost support of hundreds of billions of goods just in case of Russia. Now, take a look what China is doing. China is also working with its trade partners worldwide to do business in yuans and in local currency of that country, right? And well, you might argue, Russia's economy is not that big and this and that, and it might not really hurt dollar big time. Okay, I get that. Russian economy is big, but definitely not as big as US economy. Russia is number one economy in Europe, though. By PPP index, Russia is number one economy, right? In Europe. But what about China? China is doing the same now. Other countries, man, doing the same. This trade in national currencies is becoming a thing, right? And the more and more countries, due to irresponsible policies of the US leadership or European leadership, more and more countries are staying away from Western currencies because they have no guarantees that they're not going to lose, right, their assets. So therefore, they are beginning to do business in national currencies, and well, as a result, dollar, process of devaluation of a dollar even further increases, right? And quite often here in Russia, by the way, we are seeing arguments between the experts, financial experts, for example, that especially from ones that are explaining why ruble is still this strong. They are saying that, you know what? Okay, there is a high demand on the rubles because we are trading in rubles, and that makes ruble strong. But it's not just that, but also dollar itself is getting weaker and weaker, right? And we should keep that in mind too. So it's this constant fail of dollar, value of dollar, is also something now that being taken in account by all the experts, right? So dollar is already crashing. This process is slow, obviously, and it might take a decade or two before, maybe not 2 decades, but maybe it will take a decade before dollar will reach lowest point. But in process, I'm quite sure there will be less and less incentive on part of other countries to invest in either in a dollar, by the way, or to U.S. Treasury to give loans basically to U.S., right? And as a result, from where U.S. gonna take money to service their interests, for example, to finance their own government and governmental programs. They're gonna accelerate printing of the dollars, right? Which will make our situation even worse, isn't it? So one day U.S. gonna go bankrupt. I'm quite sure about it, man. U.S. gonna go bankrupt, I think. And there is another comment from Scooby. Let me highlight, dear friends. Thank you very much, Scooby, for interesting engagement and for your support. Let me highlight another comment and super chat from Scooby. So, yep, USA might face inflation problems, but not insolvency problem. They can always meet their debt obligations through. I mean, yet again, it is difficult to me, Scooby, to go into deep argument because I'm not financial expert, isn't it? And my knowledge about finances and how things work is quite limited, right? So therefore, I'm not going to argue with you. But I think my personal opinion is that in next 5 to 10 years' time, US will face bankruptcy. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, yet again, I always say, isn't it, that I'm a journalist, by the way. All I do all my life is to learn as much as I can about as many topics as I can so that I'll be in a position to report about stuff so that I will know at least minimum about the topic that I'm talking about, right? So that I will deliver information to reader in this particular case, to audience, to viewer or listener, in most in best way possible for me, right? And that means my knowledge is quite limited. Actually, I may know quite a lot about quite a lot of stuff on average level, maybe above average in some cases, but I'm not an expert in anything. That's what journalists are. We are not freaking experts in anything, by the way, right? Just in journalism, maybe, which is to deliver certain information to their audience. That's all. And this can be done by many. You don't necessarily have to go on the journalism faculty in university to be good at delivering their message, right? And in alternative media, you see so many successful authors of the programs, right? Successful hosts that have no journalistic education, but they are doing very well, by the way, much better than I do, right? So therefore, Scooby, it is, as I said, it is difficult to me to argue, but that's what my understanding is, that in relatively short time, US might face bankruptcy because they would not be able to maintain so much debt, right? They might default. US might actually default, man. It might sound impossible, but I think it might happen in next 5 to 10 years. Let's see. Thank you very much, Scooby, for interesting conversation and for your super chat and support. Let me check Boosted, dear friends, right now. Another another super chat from Scooby. Let me highlight, dear friends. Studio idea sounds great. Would love to see guests on video. Yet again, thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chat and for your support and commentary. Well, that would be, I would love to be in a position to do it. By the way, idea is relatively simple: to build a studio, to invite hosts, right? To invite at least 3 people. So they're gonna be like 3-4 of us in every program, and we can discuss certain topics, argue, agree, disagree on stuff. I think it will be interesting, right? And regularly invite also guests to discuss with the guests certain topics, right? It would, I mean, to have a better understanding what I'm talking about is like projects that you see on PBD, right, and Team Pool, but I want to make it better because I have some issues with projects of Team Pool and PBD. I mean, I'm not really happy with what they do, but idea technical side of it, yes, that's exactly what I have in mind, right? A visual technical side of it. But to do it, dear friends, to do it, it's doable, yes. But our community probably have to triple or quadruple, and the income for this project have to quadruple, or probably it will demand much higher funds. Because you have to pay, you have to pay salaries, right, to your co-hosts, to technical staff. In that case, you need staff sound engineers, and they're going to be person who will deal with the lighting and with montage and with everything, right? So it's a company, it's an entire company, by the way, right? And of course, when you reach that point, then there might be some advertisings that will come with it that might help to maintain the project, right, and to go forward. But to start, by the way, you need something to stand on, right? And I'm very far away from that place, man. Right now, I'm barely managing to stay on this project full time. My wife is working. I am working on this project. And I'm looking for some part-time opportunities. Sometimes there is some possibility to work from home and do some extra buck. Recently I had successful, I would say, job interview that was about early morning hours, right? That I could go and do some work. But they offer me, surprisingly low amount of wage, right? And I had to say no. So I am right now, I'm literally trying to survive, man. With this project, all income that I have on this project, if month is good, if community was very supportive, then that month we have no issue with paying for rent, and maybe little is left for I don't know, to pay some other bills, right? And that's about it. For now, this project allows me just to pay for rent and some bills, and to food to be provided. My wife is working basically to provide family with the food. I am working to pay for the rent, right, and the bills. So I'm not in a position to even dream about building a studio and stuff. But who knows? Maybe one day our community will double actually, and there will be more or triple, and project will have more income, and I will actually be able to make this project studio project feasible, and doable. We can dream about, isn't it? At least dreaming is free. So thank you very much, Scooby. Thank you very much. I'm quite sure there would be demand on such a project from Russia, by the way, because yet again, we are here and not going nowhere, right? Everyone is talking about Russia now, and then everyone will continue to talk about Russia in the future. And to have a project that from Russia, independent project from Russia that talks about all these major developments, probably will be, interesting to wider community. But yet again, I have to reach that point. I'm not there yet to be able to do. Thank you very much, Scooby, once again. Many thanks to all of you, dear friends, for your attention, for your support. In case you liked my work, and want to support there is a links under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. Please consider to subscribe to my Patreon page. Patreon and Boosty communities help tremendously, obviously. So if you can, please subscribe to my Patreon or Boosty page. And yeah, this is it for now. Hopefully you like the video, dear friends. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care. See you tomorrow.